I think it all started with the decision by the Luxembourg government of the late 1960s, particularly Pierre Werner, who foresaw that a European monetary union automatically will create a European financial market. And he saw a great potentiality for Luxembourg to be the center of that financial market. Therefore, since the steel industry was in crisis as the growth driver of Luxembourg, he decided to build up a financial industry. It was really learning by doing, and the great asset was sovereignty. So that was one. The second, that Luxembourg, by its smallness, was obviously much better prepared to receive foreigners. And they had the experience in the steel industry to welcome foreign workers. In the bigger countries, let's say in France or Germany, it would have been unthinkable to build up something essentially with foreign capital and foreign workers. And the other point about the finance industry was obviously, how can we carve out a competitive advantage? We could obviously exempt foreigners from paying taxes on their revenues in the country and so on. And in the end, it was all a success. The growth rate was absolutely fabulous, and today the financial industry accounts for about a third of the national economy, which is huge because more than a third is the government, okay? So the private sector is about 60% of the economy, of which nearly 40% is the banking and the investment industry and all that is connected with it. And only 20% is the rest of the private industry. Now, the other big question was today, well, what about the future? I, for my part, think that worldwide, the finance industry has left its golden days beyond. The other is that also our neighboring countries are looking with great jealousy at the success of Luxembourg, and we have to be reasonable. If we want to generate growth, and we have to generate growth in order to maintain the standing of the country, then we have to develop other activities. And I think that beyond that, Luxembourg has the obvious advantage of having neighbors that make many mistakes. So knowing that, we avoid the errors of our neighbors, and that, I think, will be the continued basis for growth in Luxembourg.
I'm convinced that the Luxembourg Financial Center is very well prepared for the future, that we can compete with the other big neighboring countries, but also worldwide. If I have a look at the mutual fund industry, we can say that we are here really a center of gravity. We are multilingual. This is very, very important. And I believe that we can not only build up on that, but that we can do even more in this sector. On the other hand side, there will be a change perhaps in the sense that smaller banks will leave Luxembourg, but this has finally nothing to do with Luxembourg as a financial center. They will leave that here because for a small bank, the costs for regulation are very high, because cost for regulation means investments in IT and staff, the cost for the auditor, the cost for compliance. And this is the reason why I myself believe that smaller banks will leave us, but we have a lot of good signs that other banks are coming and that other institutional investors are coming. We have seen here the example of the big Chinese banks, and this is important for Luxembourg. And why is Luxembourg so interesting? Luxembourg has a lot of double treaties. We have double tax treaties with 60 other countries, and we are negotiating with 24 other countries. But tax, I must say, this is only one issue. The other issue is that we are a EU founder member state, that you have here in Luxembourg a planning security. And this is very, very important for an investor. An investor or a rich family, they have enough risks in their own business, and they want, let's say, to manage their fortune here in Luxembourg in a very good way. And you can manage a big fortune via Luxembourg very well, also when this fortune is in different jurisdictional areas.
People who are coming out of university today, when they have a choice to make as to what industry they should be looking to work in, we fundamentally believe the internet is where you should be looking to start your career. In the larger sense, we're living a revolution where this thing called the internet is enabling people to do things that they've never been able to do before, of course in a variety of services and places. But the chance we have is that the internet has grown so fast in a short period of time that it gives people the enabling tools to really dream and become entrepreneurs. My firm is based in Luxembourg. We fund companies that are based in Luxembourg. So we fundamentally believe Luxembourg has a place to play. History proves us right when we invested in Skype and made them become a Luxembourgish company. So with the right prodding, people will come here and can build businesses here. We have a trend that we follow in our firm, and it's all about how does somebody have the ambition to change an industry. So we look at an industry, look at the value chain, we break it down and say where are the opportunities. Free is a big word for us. So anytime somebody comes to us with an opportunity to build a company that gives away something for free, we're going to figure out how to make somebody pay for that later. But free is a massive driver, and we did that with Skype. We've done that in the US with a company called Freedom Pop and an Israeli company called Wix. Give away stuff for free, users will come and use your stuff. More and more, as you spend time on this internet thing, more and more people know what you're doing, what you're browsing, what you're shopping, what you're looking at, and things like that. And there's going to be actors that are going to be collecting all this data and figuring out, how can I specifically push what I think you like? You know, for me, that's a bit too close to George Orwell in 1984, so I think we're going to have to find some limits around that. But clearly, you can't hide anymore anything you're doing online because people are watching you.
In the satellite operating business, we have a market share of roughly 23–24%. So yes, we are large. We are one of the two large satellite operators in the world. But the community of satellite operators is in itself a quite small community. How to remain there? SES has always built its success story on innovating, on pioneering new activities. Direct-to-home television did not exist in Europe before SES introduced it. Today we are innovating, for example, by developing devices that are transforming a satellite signal into an IP stream to make it available with all the other internet content from all the different infrastructures. So innovation also in the way we invest in our satellites and to make the satellites very cost efficient, all of that is key. We are also investing in new activities based on a strategy which has a clear orientation, diversification geographically, diversification from a segment perspective or from a market segment perspective. And then last but not least in our sector is raw material orbit positions and frequency rights. So we can only operate if we have access to orbit positions. And all of this is granted by a UN administration that is giving these rights to member states, so Luxembourg, the US, Sweden, Germany. And so we are really trying to put together a comprehensive portfolio of these rights by working together with government. So one feature of our business is also that we have a very strong private-public partnership structure in place with the Luxembourg government, but also with other governments and regulators worldwide. I would say the most important innovation we can speak about, that's really that we are moving, or that we are adding to our geostationary satellites, which are the 52 satellites that we are currently operating. We will add this year in a company where we are a strategic shareholder called OCB Networks. We are adding a constellation of satellites that are in a complete different Earth orbit, at mid-Earth orbit, so at a distance which is 4 times closer to the Earth than our traditional satellites. So that's quite a revolution in the satellite communications world for broadband telecommunications. And so that's, I would say, a very key innovation. And if such a venture were to fail, it's basically representing the cost of half of one of our 52 satellites. So if you can say quite small. If it's a success, it's a huge jump forwards for the company. So I think innovation also needs to be combined with a very intelligent strategy in terms of financing and funding an activity.